Good morning and welcome to Reclaiming Our Democracy. We know people are still trickling in. We had about 165 people on the registration list, so we will just invite them in as they arrive, but we have such a full agenda we do want to get started. My name is Adria Sharp. I'm the director of the Richmond Peace Education Center, and on behalf of the Peace Center and our partners at the ACLU of Virginia, welcome to today's forum. 15 years ago, the terrorist attacks on New York City and Washington, D.C. set off a trajectory of events that have changed the nature of our democracy in ways that severely threaten our most basic liberties and which place our country on a permanent war footing with tremendous costs for human life. And if democracy is to have any meaning at all, it has to mean that ordinary people are able to hold their government accountable. It has to mean that people have access to the truth about their government's activities and that they can educate themselves and challenge and change what their government does in their name. Throughout the day today, we'll be taking stock of where this country is today, where we are 15 years after 9/11, and we'll be asking what course corrections are needed. And the deeper question we'll really be asking is about who do we want to be as a society, and what can we begin to do to actualize that vision. A lot of the discussion today will focus on national and international questions of policy, about permanent war in the Middle East, about the militarization of our police, about expanding government surveillance, about the discriminatory impacts of the war on terror and its impacts on Muslim communities, South Asian, Arab communities, and communities of color in particular. Many parts of the day will be very policy focused, but other parts of the day will also be deeply personal. And one highlight of the day will be our lunchtime story sharing session, where we will have 3 individuals who were very deeply and personally impacted by 9/11 share their stories. We are fortunate to have with us some truly extraordinary speakers who come from far away, many from out of state, who will help to illuminate the many different dimensions of this discussion. And throughout the day, we'll be surfacing action steps, and we need your help with this. You'll see that there are Post-its on all of the tables. There are also Post-its. Step back. Thank you. There are Post-its on all the tables and upstairs, and over the course of the day, as action steps surface for you, if anything strikes you as something that you believe is important for ordinary citizens to do, to take action, or ideas that you are willing to commit to yourself. We're asking everyone to note those ideas on the Post-it notes and place them on the action wall. There's like a wall over there. Do you see it? The flip chart by the exit. Post-it notes on there, and we'll be collecting those and compiling them. And the Peace Center will actually be reviewing all of those ideas carefully and considering whether there are a couple of ideas that surfaced today that we can commit to supporting over the course of the next year in terms of our advocacy efforts. It has been truly a pleasure to collaborate in organizing this conference with our friends and partners at the ACLU of Virginia, which is one of the most important organizations doing some of the most important work there is to do in the state. And I am so pleased to introduce my friend Claire Mastiaga, the Executive Director of the ACLU of Virginia. Thank you.
We've been excited to be able to work with the Richmond Peace Education Center on this, and we're particularly excited because this is our annual members meeting, as well as being an educational opportunity for people beyond our membership. And that makes it a day on which I have the privilege of introducing to you the president of our board of directors, Steve Levinson, who recently retired from the Department of Homeland Security, where he's been doing HR and EEO work and civil rights related work for a long time. And Steve, could you join us?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
I am the president of the ACLU of Virginia Board of Directors. I am one of the most humbling experiences of my life. And I couldn't do anything. Most of you know Claire Guthrie-Castagnaro, one of the greatest executive directors in the country. And we're really fortunate to have her here. It's my pleasure to welcome you today to this Reclaiming Our Democracy program, which is sponsored by us and the Richmond Peace Center, Education Center. This gathering also serves As the ACLU of Virginia's annual meeting, we changed our schedule to have this today and a board meeting tomorrow. Some of the board members are here. And I know some of the staff is out at the table, but please, if you are a member of the ACLU Virginia board or a member of the staff, please raise your hand so everybody can see you. As you know, because you're here today, the topic is important and long overdue. We as a nation sacrificed many things on September 11th of 2001, including some permanent loss of innocence. But we need not also forfeit free speech, religious liberty, privacy, due process, and other constitutional guarantees because of fear and overzealousness cloaked in the name of national security. As today's program progresses, I would encourage all of you to share your own personal stories and insights in the hope that we can all be enriched and enlightened through our collective experience. Enjoy your day, and thank you for choosing to join us on this very critical event. Thanks a lot.
You'll be introduced to each of our wonderful speakers, many of whom come from far and wide as the sessions move forward. But if you are a speaker today, would you raise your hand or stand and let us know where you are so we can begin to get to know you? Wonderful. It's a lot. Great. So, it is amazing that these folks would make this kind of contribution to come here today and to be with us. We have people from the National ACLU. We have Colonel Wilkerson, Larry Wilkerson, who was Chief of Staff to Colonel Powell, to Laughman Bounding from the 9/11 families. Hugh Hankside's one of our ACLU folks. You're going to meet all of them much more directly today, but we can't say seriously and often enough how grateful we are to them for their participation today. And then there's another group that we need to say thank you to, which is the group that coordinated this whole conference and has worked really hard to put it together. Ellie, where are you? Ellie Molesky? and Elizabeth Wong. She's Elizabeth. And Bill Farrow from our staff. You'll see Bill and Fong, where are you? Are you in here? Fong Tran. You'll see Bill and Fong Tran documenting today as we go throughout the day. We'll be doing a little bit of live streaming. We'll be doing a little bit of clips so that we can preserve some of what went on, and we just wanted you to know about that. We want to say thank you to the WCBE, which is our media sponsor. They've been kind enough to be we applied for a grant to support this program by their communicating with their 300,000 listeners about this program, and we were excited about that. We also had co-sponsors, the Peace Development Fund, the September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, the Virginia Muslim Coalition for Public Affairs, and Virginia Organizing, and we're grateful to them. And finally, I wanted to say thank you, not finally because I have one more after this, but I wanted to say thank you to Holly Blake and the WILL program at the University of Richmond, who are our university sponsor and made it possible for us to be in this wonderful facility. And then finally, Ellie and the Peace Center have put together an amazing team of volunteers who've done everything from signage and direction for parking to manning the tables or personing the tables out here. And I want to say thank you to all the people who volunteered their time to make it possible. And if you volunteered, wave your hand so people can say thank you.
We'd like to invite you to just take a minute to turn to your neighbor and introduce yourself if it's someone who you don't know. And please share, in just a minute, please just share two things. Share where you were on 9/11 and share one reason that you're here today. So again, share where you were on 9/11, where you were on one reason you're here today, introduce yourself, just take 2 minutes. This activity is called Stand Up for reasons that will quickly become obvious. And it's a way to just get ourselves starting to think about the themes of the day, connecting our own lived experiences with some of the topics we'll be talking about today. And the way it works is this. I will state a series of statements. And if the statement is true to you, we invite you to stand up, or if you're not able to easily stand up or don't feel like standing up, feel free to raise your hand. You are free to pass if you would like to pass, but if a statement applies to you and you're choosing to pass, please just think about why you are choosing to pass. So again, it's stand up. I'm going to read a series of statements. Please stand if the statement is true for you. And thank you, Paul. And we ask that you do this in silence. I will ask you to stand in silence. And as you stand, please take a moment to look around the room and just observe who else is standing, how many other people are standing, and then I will invite you to sit. All right. Please stand or raise your hand if you were in Richmond on September 11th, 2001. Take a moment to look around the room. Thank you. Please sit. Please stand if you were in New York City or in the greater Washington, D.C. area on September 11th, 2001. Thank you. Please sit. Please stand if you or someone you know has been deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan. Thank you. Please sit. Please stand if you're willing, if you believe you've ever been profiled by authorities because of your skin color, dress, or head covering. Thank you. Please sit. Please stand if you have seen police or other authorities in military-style gear in the last 15 years, not in another country, but here in the United States. Thank you. Please sit. Please stand if you think that the Middle East is more stable today than it was 15 years ago. And lastly, please stand if you think the United States government is sufficiently protecting your privacy. Thank you. We ask you just to reflect for a moment about what conclusions you draw from that experience, and we'll take that experience with us throughout the day today.
All right, last logistics. The full agenda for today is in your program. Does everybody have their program? It's that pamphlet, and it has a little room for you to make some notes. So you can make some notes, and then also don't forget to put your action recommendations on Post-it and bring it to the action wall. We built 15 minutes time in after lunch and in between workshops to give you plenty of time to do what you need to do then and to do a little talking with each other and add your thoughts to the action wall then. If you're going to be doing social media posts today as we go through the day, our hashtag is #ReclaimDemocracy, and we'd love to have you tweeting and posting about this on Facebook. That would be fabulous. Bill, stand up again. Bill Farrah and Huang Tran from our office are going to be documenting. And if you have any questions about the communications and what we're doing there, please feel free to talk to either one of them. And we also encourage you to ask questions about the logistics for today. Rob Gabriel, who we introduced earlier, and Elizabeth Wong, who are two key coordinators. And I think they're outside right now, but any of us would be happy to answer any of your questions. As far as I know, there are bathrooms on this floor and on the second floor in this direction. So I wanted to be sure you knew about that, because that's always the first question I ask when I sit down. And we are, just so grateful that all of you took time to be with us today. It's an exciting day for the ACLU of Virginia. We're so pleased to have partnered with the Richmond Peace Education Center on this and hope to be continuing to do good work together. And now we would like to begin our plenary session and invite Kate Gould, Hugh Handyside, Dr. Warnie Reed, and Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson to join us on stage.
Okay. So we're going to begin our plenary session this morning, and the focus of this session is on the really big questions of what have we lost since 9/11, why does it matter, and what can we do? And we are fortunate to have some truly extraordinary guests with us today. Kate Gould, Hugh Handyside, Dr. Warnie Reed, and Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. And they really bring varied perspectives and expertise from foreign policy to race to civil liberties. The way we're going to do this is I invited each of them to speak for about 10 minutes to share some initial reflections. Then I'm going to throw one or two questions at the panel. We'll circle back and they'll share some short reflections on what we can do. And then we should have plenty of time for question-answer discussion with all of you. So let me start. You have the full bios listed in your program, but I do want to introduce these four wonderful speakers. Kate Gould is the legislative representative for Middle East Policy at the Friends Committee on National Legislation, or FCNL, which is a major organization fielding the largest team of peace activists, peace lobbyists in Washington, D.C. And I will add that FCNL has been a source of trusted advice and guidance for us at the Peace Center as we engage in our advocacy around foreign policy issues for many years. So thank you, Kate. Hugh Handyside is staff attorney with the ACLU's National Security Project. He drove all the way from New York with his 3 small children to be with us today. He works on issues related to government watch listing, racial and religious discrimination, due process, and border-related practices. Dr. Warnie Reed is professor of sociology and Africana studies and director of the Race and Social Policy Research Center at Virginia Tech, and he serves on the board of directors of the ACLU of Virginia. Check out his TED Talk, A Framework for Civil Discourse About Race and Racism. It's excellent. He earned his master's and doctorate degrees in sociology at Boston University and has authored several books. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson is Distinguished Adjunct Professor of Government and Public Policy at William & Mary. Colonel Wilkerson served as Special Assistant and then as Chief of Staff to Secretary of State Colin Powell. He also served in the State Department as Associate Director of the Policy and Planning Staff under Ambassador Richard Haas and as the staff member responsible at the State Department for East Asia and the Pacific, Political, Military, and Legislative Affairs. And he is a frequent commentator on MSNBC, among other places. So I think we'll just go in alphabetical order with reflections, starting with Kate. Kate Gould, what have we lost in the past 15 years and why does it matter? You can speak from here now. It's up to you. You can speak from here. If you prefer to speak up here, that's also fine. And I wanted to mention that Grayson in the back is our timer and she'll flash in 2-minute warning. Okay, perfect.
Great. Thank you, Adria. Thank you so much. And thank you to the Richmond Peace Education Center and the ACLU of Virginia for hosting this very important discussion. I'm thrilled to be here, thrilled to be a part of it. So I'd like to read to you all a sentence, and I want to see if you can figure out where this sentence is from. The President is authorized to use all necessary and appropriate force against those nations, organizations, or persons he determines planned, authorized, committed, or aided the terrorist attacks that occurred on September 11, 2001, or harbored such organizations or persons in order to prevent any future acts of international terrorism against the United States by such nations, organizations, or persons. Does anyone know where that's from? Yes.
It's an authorization.
The Patriot Act? Not quite.
It's an authorization for use of military force passed by Congress. Right?
Exactly. The 2001 authorization for the use of military force.
For everybody except Parliament.
Right, thank you, yes, exactly.
Everybody.
He said that it was voted by every single member of Congress voted in support of it, except for one member of Congress, Congresswoman Barbara Lee. So those 60 words are the most dangerous words, I would say, to pass through Congress since 9/11. That single sentence constitutes, the authorization for the use of military force passed within 72 hours of the horrific 9/11 attacks. As the nation was consumed by outrage and grief, the House and Senate voted on whether to enshrine these words into law. And every member of Congress voted in support of them for this blank check for war, except for Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who warned even then against the unintended consequences of these dangerously vague words. So the 2001 AUMF has now allowed the U.S. government to wage war anytime, anywhere, against anyone deemed to pose a threat to national security. The AUMF opened the doors to U.S. wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and now in Syria. In the 15 years since its passage, we've seen this authorization used by both the Obama and the Bush administrations to justify unchecked military action around the world. In fact, a recent report from the Congressional Research Service shows that this authorization has been used to justify 37 military actions in 14 countries. 14 countries, including, not limited to, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, and Mali. But it doesn't stop there. The 2001 AUMF has been used as the legal framework for indefinite detention at Guantanamo Bay, for warrantless wiretapping on Americans and the targeting of American citizens, notably Anwar al-Awlaki and his 16-year-old non-combatant son. Throughout the Bush administration and the Obama administration, the 2001 AUMF has been wielded as a weapon to expand the executive war-making powers, while Congress continues to shirk from its constitutional responsibility to rein in those powers. Of course, the Constitution vests the power to declare war in Congress, not the executive branch. But as Ben Wittes of the Brookings Institution has pointed out, the declaration of war is a dead instrument of national law, but the modern incarnation of the declaration of war is the 2001 AUMF. Indeed, the 2001 AUMF is a declaration of endless war around the world, and has been used to justify torture, drone strikes, and enhanced surveillance of all of us in this room and everyone in this country. These policies have been justified, of course, on the grounds that they will make us safer in a post-9/11 world. But what we've seen over and over again is that they're doing the exact opposite. That this post-9/11 war at home and around the world is making the world more dangerous. And as a result, anti-American sentiment continues to expand, hardening extremists while extremist recruitment soars. So whether it be the U.S. dropping bombs in Iraq and Syria, or subsidizing Saudi Arabia as Saudi Arabia bombs Yemen, or subsidizing the Israeli military occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, U.S. militarism continues to be a recruiting bonanza for violent extremists around the world. So what do we do? I know Adria said we'll get to that later, but I wanted to jump into it right away because I do believe this is so important to be thinking about all along about what are these steps that we can take to shift the U.S. focus from this military base and bombs and bullets approach to supporting more inclusive diplomatic solutions and peace-building solutions that will actually make the world safer. So I want to focus on two major opportunities that I see that Virginians in particular can have a role to play in along these lines. First, we have to repeal the 2001 AUMF, or the next administration, the one after that, are continuing to expand these wars around the world. Virginians have a special role to play in this because Senator Kaine has been an advocate, helped by his constituents, like many of you, like the work that the Richmond Peace Education Center has done over the years. He has actually been advocating to revise and to ultimately repeal the 2001 AUMF. Now, as a vice presidential candidate, you can hold him to it. You can hold by helping to make sure that he can deliver on that commitment if he were to become the next vice president. And he talks about it on the campaign. And then second, and most immediately, I want to bring this up because there's a big opportunity next week to take action on this front. So Virginians can press Senators Kaine and Warner to block the pending billion-dollar arms sale to Saudi Arabia. So this is something that we can actually have an impact on in the next 72 hours. That's why I passed around call sheets. There should be on every table that explain what this issue is about, urging some talking points that explain the importance of blocking this billion-dollar arms sale and giving Senators King and Warner to vote to block it. This vote is happening next week. It could happen as early as Tuesday. So 4 senators, Democrats Murphy and Franken, and Republicans Mike Lee and Rand Paul, have introduced legislation to block the deal. And what's fascinating in all my years of lobbying, I think I've never lobbied on an issue where there are so many undecided senators. I mean, really, so many offices, they don't know what to think of this legislation. There just hasn't been an opportunity to vote on this sort of thing before. Or there have been opportunities, but Congress hasn't taken advantage of those opportunities. And now we actually have a bill, we have a vote coming up next week, and what I keep hearing from members of Congress and from their staff is that they are undecided and they're still waiting to see what happens on this issue. They're very interested to see what the calls coming in from their states are saying on this. So momentum is building for a strong vote on the arms deal. And many humanitarian and human rights groups have been really involved with this. And what we're all highlighting is that, look, we shouldn't be rewarding Saudi Arabia with more weapons as the Saudi-led coalition continues to bomb hospitals, schools, and civilian areas in Yemen. Okay, so what does this have to do with the post-9/11, the bigger context? So this coming week is really important for drawing attention to the U.S. and Saudi war in Yemen. It gets very little attention. And Yemen has been a country that has been particularly devastated by the post-9/11 so-called global war on terror. And every vote against this arms deal sends another message to Saudi Arabia to stop its indiscriminate killing of Yemeni civilians. Every vote against this deal also sends a message that this unchecked U.S. militarism isn't making the world safe, that it's making the world more dangerous. We know that the U.S. military alliance with Saudi Arabia has helped generate, one factor, generating radical militancy throughout the Middle East. The presence of U.S. bases and troops in the Middle East, and specifically in Saudi Arabia, was one part of Osama bin Laden's professed motivation for the